Florida State earned its eighth win of the season with another dominating win over Louisiana. So that means it's bowl time. The Noles will go for 9 wins on the season this Friday against the rival Florida Gators. And that opens up a world of possibilities on the bowl frontier. And as you can see from this, the ACC has a lot of bowl tie ins that is getting more and more narrow as we get closer and closer to the end of the regular season. So let's talk about where the Noles might be bowling this year, which is fun to say because we haven't been able to talk about that in a few years. Now, this is updating from the last video. I think one of the bowls we mentioned is a long shot. And that was the Military Bowl. That's just not happening. No one is projecting that anymore. So scratch that one out. No Military Bowl for FSU. Sorry, maybe another year. There's a couple that are hanging on still that are slight possibilities. I want to talk about those before we get into the meat of the bowl possibilities, and that is a Holiday Bowl. Still, the Action Network is projecting Florida State in the Holiday Bowl against Utah. I think that's more possible. Obviously, if Florida State loses to Florida, I hate saying it, but it is a slim possibility. They could lose that game. It's a rivalry. And if they do, then the Holiday Bowl becomes a possibility. Still not a bad payout. That's going to be in San Diego, California. So that is a bit of a haul for the Seminoles to go across country, but just keep that one in mind. Another one that is in there is a possibility should the Noles lose on Friday. I hate to keep saying that, but it is what it is. The Duke's Mayo Bowl. Sporting News is projecting FSU against Illinois in that matchup, and that also has a 4.7 million payout. It's okay. I don't know, really. Honestly, I think the Duke's Mayo Bowl, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina, is going to take one of the Carolina schools. There's plenty of them that are bowl eligible this year. I don't really see FSU getting to that, but I guess some things could fall into place a little bit. One other one to throw out there that I don't really think is very possible, but it's whatever. It got mentioned. I think it's nonsense, but it's the Sun Bowl. There's at least one projection for them, but I just don't see that as being possible with FSU against Utah. So let's talk about the two bowl games that I think are extremely likely for Florida State. I'd say there's an 80% shot right now that Florida State ends up in one of these two bowl games if it defeats the Florida Gators this Friday. And number one, not number one on my pick, but the first one we're going to talk about is the Cheez-It Bowl. Now, that is down in Orlando, Florida. And interesting, a couple of nice projections there for Florida State. That is played on December 29th, by the way, and will broadcast on ESPN. That pits the ACC against a Big 12 opponent. So there's two major outlets that are projecting this game right now for Florida State. One of those is the USA Today, and they've got the Noles against Texas, the Texas Longhorns. Boy, that'd be fun, huh? Get to go to Orlando, Longhorns, Seminoles. That'd be a fun matchup. So that one is on the docket. The Athletic is reporting Florida State are projecting Florida State against Oklahoma State, another Big 12. I prefer Texas, but whatever. Either one, rematch. Remember Florida State 2000, I believe it was 14, opened the season against Oklahoma State. That was a very competitive game. That has a $6 million payout, the Cheez-It Bowl. So possible. I think possible. Now, here's the one that's more likely in my mind. I think pretty good chance Florida State beats the Gators, gets to that 9th win. They're going to be in Jacksonville, Florida, in the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl. That is played December 30th this year. That is also on ESPN. It pits the ACC against an SEC opponent. So who could that be? Not super exciting with the projections right now, but both Yahoo and ESPN's Mark Schlabach have Florida State going up against Kentucky. That would be interesting because you would have the Mark Stoops, who used to be a defensive coordinator at Florida State. Florida State would be going against him, but you got to wonder that if their star quarterback, Will Levis, would he play in that game because he's projected by a lot of people to be a first-round pick. You'll take it. I mean, it'd be a nice bowl game. It's a good payout for Florida State, but I don't know if that's the most intriguing matchup. I've also seen some people throwing out South Carolina as a possibility. They obviously had a huge win last weekend. So that'd be one there. I think Florida State's primary competition to be that ACC representative right now is Notre Dame, believe it or not. Yes, Notre Dame is included in the ACC, even though they're not really in the ACC for football. So Florida State will battle it out for Notre Dame for that one. Now, there is at least one other bowl I got to talk about here. And I hate to even throw it out there, but I keep hearing it is a real possibility should some things fall into place. And yes, believe it or not, the Orange Bowl is still there for Florida State. Now, that is in Miami, December 30th. ACC versus the SEC or a Big Ten opponent falls in there. Now, I will say, if Florida State were to get there, a lot of the projections I'm seeing says that SEC opponent would be Alabama. So, man, how much fun would that be? The Seminoles against the Crimson Tide in South Florida. Man, that'd be a great way to finish off the year. Now, a few things have to happen for this to transpire that way. Of course, the major thing is Clemson has to back their way into the playoffs. Now, that's definitely a possibility. There's a few teams in front of them for that final spot, but all of those teams are not guaranteed to get in. Maybe other than, I'd say, the winner of Michigan, Ohio State, in Georgia. They're pretty much guaranteed, absent something crazy happening, to both of them getting in there. But all those teams between Clemson and that third and fourth spot have tough opponents coming ahead and can drop off of there. I mean, the Ohio State Michigan game, I think Ohio State loses, they're still getting one of those playoff spots. But Michigan, who had to barely pull it out last week, I think if they lose, especially in a blowout loss to Ohio State, I think Clemson might jump them. There's that pesky TCU team is sitting there. You need them to probably lose to push them down a little bit more. And then the other one that's up there too, you got to worry about is USC out there. I can guarantee the playoff committee wants a West Coast representative to be there, and USC is a primary candidate. The good news is, Florida State fans, you got to become. If you want that Orange Bowl, better be Notre Dame fans this weekend because they play against USC in that rivalry there. So those teams need to fall off a little bit for Florida State to get in position. I mean, LSU's also there. They lose in the SEC championship game. I don't think they're going to take a 3-loss LSU team over a 1-loss conference champion in Clemson. So that's in there too. So a lot can happen between now and to the point we get to the bowl selection time. But Florida State, I really think the Cheez-It Bowl or the TaxSlayer is really the most likely. Orange Bowl still hanging out there. I still see occasionally the ReliaQuest Bowl. Seems a little bit of a long shot there in Tampa, and then the Cotton Bowl. A lot of weird things that have to happen for Florida State to go out there and play in Dallas on January 2nd. So that's your bowl projections up to date for this week, 1 week before the end of the regular season. So stay tuned. Obviously, after that Florida game and what happens this weekend with all these other games, we'll have much more clarity. So we'll try to do another update next week before we get to the conference championship games on where Florida State might be bowling. Hopefully you like this video. Hit that thumb up under me there. We'd appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed, you get some great videos on here. We have live shows constantly, Jeff Cameron show. There's a Wake Up Warchant live. There's going to be a lot more recruiting shows as we get closer and closer to National Signing Day, the early period. It's Sunday Smash. Live shows. We're going to have pregame shows before the Florida game, postgame shows, in-game shows. So hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you get notified of the latest offerings here on Warchant TV. Stay tuned for more on your Florida State Seminoles.